I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll take a motion to accept the minutes for the January 23rd meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Cloutier, seconded by Councilor Ray. All in favor? Okay, minutes are accepted. We'll now move into a public comment period for anyone wishing to make comments about items not on tonight's agenda.
Mr. Mayor and councilors, I'm here to address an issue regarding...
Name and address.
Oh, yes, I apologize.
Sorry.
Totally forgotten the signs right there. My name is Jason Lavoie. I live at 353 Lisbon Street. I'm here to address an issue as we approach budget season, and I know this is mainly addressed to the representative to the school committee, but also as city councilors, you can help advocate for the school budget. One issue is the substitute teachers. We still have a hard time filling substitute teacher jobs, and I think it would be good to look at the pay we have for our substitute teachers, and a small increase in pay for substitute teachers I think is within the purview to increase the number of substitute teachers. We recently brought them back in-house. I'm not sure what the numbers are, but as we look at the budget, I think it would be important to realize the importance of substitute teachers in our school system. Just to let everyone know, I am a substitute teacher, so this would affect me. But I think we have many good substitute teachers in our schools, and people have put themselves out there, and I think it'd be wise to take a look at our pay structure. There's been many media articles about the pay of substitute teachers, and also the lack of substitute teachers in our schools, and I think it would be a good area to look down. I don't think Bill Webster is here to address this, but I think it would be, as we approach budget season, something to look at. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Jason. Anyone else?
Do we get to say anything? Can I say something? What you just said?
Sure.
I'm no longer a substitute, so I wouldn't benefit from this, but I agree. That's the best way to get enough substitutes for our schools. When I was substituting, there were days that there were 4 or 5 openings for substitutes and no teacher for that room. And they would have to pull ed techs to go into the rooms, and that meant there was an ed tech missing in the other room. So I think a slight raise would help us to be competitive and to get the best substitutes we can get and to get the number that we can get. So I support that too. Thank you for bringing it up.
So just to address that, we did give a raise. I was the former school committee representative to the school committee, or the former city council representative to the school committee. And we did actually give the substitutes a raise during, I think, our last budget season or the one before that, so that we would be much more competitive with school departments in the area.
Sure.
As the current city council representative to the school committee, we've heard from Bill Webster that our fill rate for substitutes is improving, which I think might be due to what Councilor Cloutier just referred to, but it's on the website as well, and we'll definitely, I've got notes here, so we'll look at it.
Just a question for Councilor Cloutier. It's a per diem mechanism, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, excellent. One more call. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment. Before we run to a roll call, I want to deliver some good news. A couple weeks ago, we had a local youth hockey team here that won the New England 3-on-3 tournament, and they got a all-expenses-paid trip to Tampa to watch the NHL All-Star Game, compete in some skills competitions, and also play in a beach bash tournament against teams from across the country, and they won that too. So they get to fly home with one of the Boston Bruins. They got a couple of autographed sticks, and I think these kids should be congratulated for representing our community. So it's good to hear. Good news. So, roll call.
All roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Councilor of Ward 3.
Excellent. Agenda item number 1.
Item number 1, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for the Elks Lewiston Lodge number 371, located at 1675 Lisbon Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to the Elks Lewiston Lodge number 371, located at 1675 Lisbon Street.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Lyson, seconded by Councilor Cloutier. Questions from council? To the public? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Council from Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 2.
Item number 2, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for the Cage, 97 through 99 Ash Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to the Cage, 97 through 99 Ash Street.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Lyson, seconded by Councilor Cloutier. Questions from the council? To the public? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Council from Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 3.
Item number 3, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for the Franco-American Heritage Center, 46 Cedar Street. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to the Franco-American Heritage Center, 46 Cedar Street.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
A motion by Councilor Lyson, a second by Councilor Pettingill. Questions from the council? Public? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Council from Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 4.
Item number 4, public hearing on the renewal application for a special amusement permit for live entertainment for Sea Asian Bistro, 48 East Avenue. Requested action to grant a special amusement permit for live entertainment to Sea Asian Bistro, 40 East Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Cloutier, seconded by Councilor Pettingill. Council. Public. Council. Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
And Ward 2.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 5.
Item number 5, public hearing and final passage on amendments to the business licensing ordinance and the vehicles for hire ordinance to eliminate the taxi and tattoo artist appeals committee. Requested action that the proposed amendments to the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Businesses, Article 2, Tattooing, Section 22-364, Right to Appeal, and Chapter 82, Vehicles for Hire, Article 2, Taxicab, Section 82-54, Right to Appeal, receive final passage by a roll call vote.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilor Lyson, seconded by Councilor Markov. Questions from the council? Lyson?
Have any discussions been held with the Board of Appeals at all about assuming these responsibilities? Has that been part of the process?
No, that's a good question, Jim. No discussions. I expect that this is going to be something we might deal with once every 3 years, if that. So it'll be a pretty insignificant action on the board's part.
Anyone else to the council? Public? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
and Ward 2.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 6.
Item number 6, public hearing and first passage for an amendment to the conditional rezoning agreement for the property at 299 River Road. Requested action to approve first passage for the amendment to the conditional rezoning agreement for 299 River Road to conditionally rezone the property, subject to the conditions defined in the rezoning agreement, and to continue the public hearing for final passage to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor Cloutier. Questions from the council?
Can we just get an overview of this from the city administrator or from Gil?
Yes, Gil Arsenault, Director of Planning and Code. The council, some of the council will remember that last August, we did a conditional rezoning on Provenci Landscape property. That's the property we're talking about, out on River Road. And we went from rural agricultural to neighborhood conservation B, primarily to give the individual that was looking to buy the real estate at that time the ability to sell antiques, which isn't permitted in the rural agricultural district. That transaction did not occur. There's a new interested party here in the audience, as a matter of fact. The proponents are here as well, that would like to run an engineering firm in the barn. If people can picture the barn, that's where Provenchi's did their retail sales accessory to their landscape business. So this is a minor amendment to the contract zone that the council acted on in August of 2017, which will simply allow for professional offices up to 5,400 square feet. It still allows the underlying uses in the rural agricultural district and the uses that we talked about for the neighborhood conservation B district as well. It's a really good tool, this contract zoning, because we can allow somebody to use property and still put limitations such that we're going to protect the character of that specific area. And as you know, it's a high, heavy traffic area in any event, but there are some very fine homes in that area.
Thank you.
Further questions from council for Mr. Arsenal? Thank you, Gil. To the public. Back to the council. Mr. Marco? Oh, go ahead. Come on up. Oh, sure.
You paid your fees, you know what I mean?
He likes to come up here. Good evening, thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Norm Lamy, I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Maine. I live at 234 Montello Street. I'm here representing my brother-in-law, Roger Roberge, and prospective buyer, Brian Langlack. And on behalf of Roger and Brian, the requested amendment is to, as Gil said, is to amend the existing contract request previously approved by the Planning Board and City Council 7-0. It was unanimous. Provincial Landscape has operated at that location for the past 28 years. The current use includes a single-family residence, a landscape nursery, greenhouses, and accessory retail business. Roger is seeking to retire, finally, and has executed a purchase and sale agreement with Brian Langwa. Previously approved contract zoning allowed prospective buyer to do an antique shop. That deal fell through. Brian is the new purchase sale agreement. The property would be subject to approval of the contract rezoning request to allow him to operate a small professional office building at 299 River Road. Mr. Langwa's newly established business is a professional electrical engineering consulting office, providing engineering design services for electrical and instrumentation technologies. The current business will employ 5 employees right off, and he anticipates having additional 5 employees in the near future. Over the years, the Roberge family has maintained a great relationship with their River Road neighbors. Roger has talked with his neighbors about the contracting rezoning request, and all have expressed support. With approval of this request, the neighbors would continue seeing the property used in a consistent manner or less than the current intensity of the past uses of the site. The City of Lewiston would benefit by having a new local businessman here in the community.
Thank you. Questions from the council, please, folks? Thank you very much. We're back at the council. Questions, comments? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
And Ward 2?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 7.
Item number 7, public hearing and first passage to rezone the property at 381 through 391 Main Street from the Community Business District to the Centerville District. Requested action to approve first passage of the amendment to the Zoning and Land Use Code and map to rezone the property at 381 through 391 Main Street from the Community Business District to the Centerville District, and to continue the public hearing for final passage to the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilor Lyson, seconded by Councilor LaJoy. Questions from the council? Would you like Gil to come up
I
and give
would
an overview?
love that, thank you.
This is another really good project for the city. The Deerfield Credit Union, formerly Rainbow Credit Union, I think most of us identify with, is on the corner of Holland and Main Street. 2 buildings on that lot. It's a very small lot. And the credit union is proposing to tear down both buildings. One's strictly office, one's, their commercial operations. Making that lot work, because it's so small in a community business district, is next to impossible. The yard requirements and the setbacks will not permit them to essentially replicate what they have, if you will. And diagonally across the street, we have the Centreville district, which is basically our downtown district. It's where Central Maine Medical Center is located, and the zoning standards associated with that district are much more flexible. This is a significant project, looking to potentially spend $4.25 to $4.5 million. It's about probably a one-year project, from the demolition to the build-out. There's going to be a parking deck as well. There are proponents here from the credit union, but this is, I think, a win-win rezoning.
Further questions?
I have some questions for Gil. Looking at the map in the packet, looks like there's overlapping property lines and zoning lines, particularly what looks like a building envelope or parking arrangement from the neighbor that crosses a particular dark line there.
The map shows essentially the two properties. If you're Main Street facing the credit union building proper is on Holland and Main, and then the office building, the bigger building actually, is to the left of that. Everything's shaded in white. When you look at the proposed zoning, the Centreville, two properties, but that's what's being proposed to be rezoned. The credit union actually owns a property down off Oak Street as well that they use for some limited parking. That's not part of this project.
I'm confused by the white section that's off of Oak Street, but inside of a darker line.
Let me take a look.
You don't have a copy?
Gil, look at.
About this section here, and then the next question.
This is the property. This is part of this property where the veterans are located.
What's this line here?
That's, I believe, a former property line. I don't really know.
So this is the property.
The property should be this.
Should be that.
Yep.
Okay.
As I understand the project. That's what's being rezoned.
And the other question I'd have is, I assume that with the current buildings down, and the one that's right up against the property line wouldn't be right up against the property line once it's reconstructed? Yeah.
No, that will be the existing building to the left, if you will, going out of Main Street. That's going to be where people will exit through the teller units. So that building will not be crowding that property line whatsoever. Okay. The building will be roughly in the same location where the current credit union is. And this will be going to the planning board probably in March.
I thought that there was a 7-0 vote from the planning board.
Yes, they, excuse me, for development review approval,
okay.
Site plan review approval, assuming that the council acts positively on it. And like I said, there are proponents here from the credit union.
Any other questions from Councilor Liz?
Thank you. Mr. Hediger's memo mentions this request leading to a question of the zoning on the east side of Main Street from Elm Street south to the Rite Aid, all of which is zoned CB.
Correct.
And whether the property should be considered for rezoning, perhaps to CV too. Is that something that planning staff, maybe not you since you're retiring, Gil, congratulations, but something you guys could look into? And because I think if it makes sense, it may provide that flexibility, and I think the zoning is much more compatible that way. CB is, as you know, and most people know, it's currently along major arterial roads, but closer into downtown, I think the flexibility is quite important, especially for existing structures who want to, renovate, remodel, or whatever. So.
Essentially, all the properties in that area are non-conforming. And Centreville zoning makes great sense, much more user-friendly.
Any other questions from council? Public?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Tom Greer from Walsh Engineering. We've put together some of the graphics, and I have them with me larger. I won't bother going through them. I'm here to represent the credit union. We're very excited about this project. We think that's going to be able to redevelop that site and make it really a first-class facility for the public. It's very important to the credit union to be able to stay on that site. Their customer base is very much locally based there, and we think that that's important to stay there. They get a fair amount of walk-in traffic as well as drive-through traffic, so again, it speaks to being very supportive of the neighborhood. I'd also like to thank Dave Henniger from the planning staff. He did a great job helping us get to this point, and it's been very comfortable working with the whole planning staff. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on it. If you would like me to go through the graphics, I will, but I think it's pretty clear where we're headed with this project.
Questions?
Not on the graphics, but the name change. Do you know what's the history behind going from Rainbow to the Dirigo?
I don't. There's someone in the office.
I think
Somebody does.
Somebody does. Yeah. Okay, because that's a question my wife asked, so I got to get the answer to. She'll be impressed, you know.
Hi, I'm Mark Sampson. I'm
Hey, Mark.
president
How
of
are you?
Dirigo. The name change was based on market research. The older name didn't have a lot of traction. We wanted something that spoke to our older main roots and something that would allow us to kind of go out into the future. We also like the I-Lead, the fact that it's on the flag, and the fact that our marketing material and our branding is a lot cleaner and simpler now. So
no change in ownership or corporate?
It's
or
a member-owned
member-owned still.
cooperative. Yep, and we've been around for a long time, so that was the only reason it was marketing.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further questions for these gentlemen? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any additional public comment?
I don't know if this would be the time to ask this question, but I don't know if somebody can answer this for me. It's a pretty busy area of Main Street, and there's a lot of traffic that goes by there. So during your construction, do you know how that'll affect traffic flow on Main Street? Because it's a pretty busy traffic area, so I just wonder if you could answer that for me.
Guess you should have stayed.
My name is Tom Greer from Walsh Engineering. The traffic issue is, I think, the issue for our site plan review and all of that. It looks like we're going to relocate the credit union during the construction period, so all of those customers will go to the temporary site, and we're feverishly searching for a site right now, so we can't identify one, but that's the plan. The construction of it will have most of the construction equipment. There's enough room on site to work with that particular site. And then there's the overflow parking at the lower side of Oak Street that we think can be used for some of the construction equipment and storage and that type of thing. So we're still developing the construction management plan, but I think that's the root of the overall project.
Excellent. Other public comment? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Council from Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
And Ward 2?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Item number 8.
Item number 8, public hearing for the fiscal year 2019 Lewiston Capital Improvement Program. Requested action to conduct a public hearing to receive citizen input and comment regarding the fiscal year 2019 Lewiston Capital Improvement Program.
We don't need a motion on that, do we?
No, it's just to open the floor for citizen input and comment. Thank you.
The floor is open. Comment on the capital improvement program. Okay. Going once. Public hearing is closed. Agenda item number 9.
Item number 9, resolve making an appropriation from the city's undesignated fund balance in an amount not to exceed $160,000, and authorizing the city administrator to purchase a sidewalk tractor and associated attachments and tow-behind high-capacity sander. Requested action to approve the resolve, making an appropriation from the city's undesignated fund balance in an amount not to exceed $160,000, and authorizing the city administrator to purchase a sidewalk tractor and associated attachments and tow-behind high-capacity sander.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Lyson, seconded by Councilor Cloutier. Any questions from the council? Councilor Cloutier.
Can we just get either an update from Dave Jones or from the city administrator about sort of how we got here and why we're talking about making an appropriation outside of budget season?
Let me start, and Dave can add in any corrections and additions. At a recent workshop, we spent some time talking to the council about sidewalk snow plowing, which had become a problem. We'd gotten some complaints from councilors as well as from members of the public about how long it took us to clear some of our priority and secondary sidewalks after the relatively, 12-inch snowstorm that we had around Christmas?
January 6th or something.
Early in January. Part of the problem was that snowstorm had come fairly close to a previous one, so there were pretty high snowbanks already. And it was complicated by the fact that we had some equipment difficulties, breakdowns in one piece in particular that had not been available all winter because of parts availability to repair it. So basically at the workshop, one of the things we did was talk about current level of service we can provide, how long it takes us to do these sidewalks, and the council indicated a desire to try to improve the situation by moving forward a purchase of a sidewalk plow that was planned for the fiscal year 19 capital improvement program. That plow had been in the capital improvement program for a couple of years, had been in last year's approved plan, was in this year's plan. The concern was that with our normal schedule, we would not be able to get that plow here and in service until after the winter was over. So there was a desire to see if we might be able to speed that process up. Public Works then checked with company that makes the preferred equipment that we like. They indicated that they could provide us a machine within 30 days of our actually placing a delivery or an order. And so what this item would do is to allow us to proceed to purchase that item, hopefully get it here late February, early March, and provide the necessary funding. Normally that funding would be done as part of the rest of the budget process, which we would get to probably in late May or early June. But this would allow us to move that forward. I think the council over the last few years has made pedestrian issues and pedestrian safety a significant concern and a priority for the council. This would support that. We'll mention that there is an alternate resolve in front of you because an issue did come up through Councilor Marcotte, where the question was raised whether the planning board needed to make a recommendation on this purchase. By ordinance, the planning board must make a recommendation on any capital item that is not included in an approved capital plan. So the question became, was that necessary in this instance? I took a look at it, shared some of my thoughts with all of the council members and with the chair of the planning board via email. I think that where I came down on the issue is that the plow was already approved in the current plan that's been approved for this year. It was approved for the second year. It's not unusual for us to move items between years. If, for example, we get all of our paving done and still have money left over, we may add next year's projects into this year's program. In the past, we've generally gone to the planning board only on items that didn't appear at all in the capital plan, such as the fire engine we purchased last year, which was replaced due to an accident. So I think you can justify proceeding without a recommendation from the planning board. Same time, I think somebody could make an argument on the other side of that issue as well, in that we are making a change, and quite honestly, I think everybody recognizes when we look at our capital plan, the majority of the focus goes into the first year. not so much into the out years of the plan. But I do think you could do either one. The alternate resolve just adds a section that says, this purchase is subject to the receipt of a positive recommendation from the planning board. That would give the planning board the option to have their say on it. They're meeting next Monday, so it wouldn't be a terrible delay, but it would be somewhat of a delay. And normally, they're not required to give a positive recommendation, just give a recommendation. But if you folks were going to approve everything tonight and then say, well, give us a recommendation, even though we've already made up our mind, that's kind of a little less than upfront. So this would give them that say. I don't think you need to do that, but it is an option if you want to consider it. So basically, tonight, you have a couple of options. One is to go ahead and approve the resolve, which would appropriate the money. It would also waive the formal bid process so that we can place the order with our preferred provider. You could just simply do that. You could adopt the alternate resolve, which basically would ask the planning board for a positive recommendation, and then as soon as that was in hand, we could proceed. Also point out that you do obviously have the option of not doing anything and just letting the regular process go forward. That would mean for sure that the item would not be received in time for any use this winter. So those are the options that you have and kind of the background. I don't know if Dave wants to add anything. I guess maybe an update on why you have a different pricing.
The only thing I'll add is that earlier this afternoon, the mayor asked me about why there wasn't a snow blower on the attachment on the quote. And after I looked at it some, I found out that I had included the wrong quote for you, and I included an update that was at your seats before you came in. It should say update right up on the top right-hand corner of it. It's actually for about $1,400 less than what the original quote was, so it's $157,549 as opposed to the $158,994 that was in the original quote. And that's all on me, guys. I got the wrong one, so have to answer any other questions the council may have.
It was discussed during the workshop that we might be able to get a discount purchasing at this time of year. Did that come to fruition as true, or was that?
They've given us a discount as part of this, so.
For the timing?
Yeah. It's a municipal discount that they normally give and stuff, so.
Okay.
This is a brand-new machine. This isn't a year-old machine, so.
Council Marcotte?
I was a little intrigued by the initial quote, which included such things as a 5-position folding plow and a 60-inch power angle sweeper. My understanding is that we do have a few of these attachments in-house.
Yes, we do. We have brooms that we use with the other machines. They're interchangeable. We'll be able to use them on this one.
So if we were to acquire this machine shortly, we'd be able to maybe even get to use it for a late season snow.
Yeah.
And subsequent to that, sweep the sidewalks during the spring cleaning.
Yeah, the primary duties for these machines are actually during our winter months, doing the snow blowing and the plowing and what have you and so. But we do use them in the springtime when we're sweeping sidewalks, getting the sand off the sidewalks to clean them up. We also have a flail mower that attachment that we use on occasion for some of our fields and stuff. So they do get used other times of the year, but I will tell you, most of their work is in the wintertime doing the sidewalk clearing, so.
Councilor Cloutier?
So just to follow up on what Councilor Marcotte was just asking, the original quote has those items on it. The new quote does not. So when we're talking about those items, we're talking about using the ones we already have in-house on the
Correct.
new.
Correct.
Okay.
Further questions? To the public? Back to the council. Councilor Lyson?
So, David, we can't get this by 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, right?
Unfortunately, no, although the supplier did tell us he thought he could beat the 30-day timeframe.
That's
I
good.
think we'll probably see this in a couple of 3 weeks, depending
Sooner the
upon
better, in my
when we can, when we can award it. If we award it tonight, that's one thing. If we have to wait until next week with the planning board, that's something else, so.
Any further comments? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 3?
Which one are we moving on?
The one that was in the book originally, because no one has made a motion to amend it. So the one that was in your book.
To approve the results.
It's the one without the planning board.
Thank you. Yes.
Counselor from Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes?
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 10.
Item number 10, resolve reauthorizing a Public Works Committee. Requested action to approve the resolve reauthorizing a Public Works Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Cloutier, seconded by Councilor Lyson.
Let me clarify, there's two alternates here, so you need to pick one. One would establish a Public Works Committee, and one would establish a Public Works Committee with a subcommittee for recycling. If you do the Public Works Committee, there's another item later on the agenda to set up a separate recycling committee. But there was some discussion about having the recycling committee be a subcommittee in effect of the Public Works Committee. So if that's the route you want to go, just select that resolve and adopt it. So you would have a Public Works Committee with a subcommittee on recycling. If you don't want to have it as a subcommittee, just adopt the straight Public Works Committee, and then there's a separate item that would allow you to adopt a separate recycling committee. And I'll also point out that one other change has been recommended where the, under composition and appointment, where it says 7 voting members, 2 counselors, the suggestion has been made that that be changed to 2 elected officials, which would extend membership to, for example, the potential that the mayor could serve on the committee, or that maybe a member of the school committee could serve on the committee.
That's for the
Public Works Committee.
Works Committee itself.
I guess Councilor Cloutier, you made the motion. I'll let you pick which is your flavor.
So I guess I would be interested in hearing what Councilor Lyson and Councilor Beam would
Yeah,
recommend as former members.
We haven't talked about it, but I think it as a subcommittee is fine. Yeah, because I don't think it should be a standing committee by itself, so, at least at this time, that's why.
I agree. It seems to make sense since what recycling is loosely tied to the Public Works Department because Public Works has to implement whatever suggestions the recycling committee will comes up with. So it would kind of facilitate things to have the Public Works Committee involved.
So then I would move on the resolve as a subcommittee.
Okay, so we'll be moving on the second resolve. Councilor Lyson, is that
That's
acceptable?
fine,
as a
and
second?
then with the amendment that's 2 elected officials instead of counselors.
Okay, so this is the resolve we are discussing currently, a solid waste committee with a recycling subcommittee. Any other questions from the council? To the public? Back to the council? Call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes?
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
And Ward 2?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Skipping to agenda item number 12.
Item number 12, resolve calling upon the Maine State Legislature to adopt LD 1492, an act to attract, educate, and retain new Mainers to strengthen the workforce. Requested action to approve the resolve calling upon the Maine State Legislature to adopt LD 1492, an act to attract, educate, and retain new Mainers to strengthen the workforce.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Lyson, seconded by Councilor Cloutier. Questions from the council?
Just a comment. Yeah. I think we've vetted this issue pretty well over the last 2 council meetings, and there was certainly strong support from the community of moving forward. I don't think this is the end-all be-all. I think this is a start of really creating some needed resources and services here. I think it's also a thing of fairness. It's been created in Portland, another community that's has seen a large immigrant population, and I do think it makes sense to do that here as well. I know reading grant opportunities. I said I wish we had a coordinator who could write some grants and stuff and bring some other resources into it. I know there's also been some discussion about how the private sector could contribute and do this. There's certainly an opportunity as we move forward in this initiative of the whole community, private, nonprofit, and public, really is necessary. That kind of coalition is necessary to move these types of issues forward. And I think the seed money provided by this bill, and it's going to be very competitive up in Augusta. I was up for during the work session, and it's, there's a lot of needs in this state, but I think this is one that's a good investment. Often people talk about issues with our new Mainer populations about language, about getting jobs and getting work, and I think this is a key to any immigrant coming into a community, is having the skills of language, allowing them to get an education, to get job training, to get jobs, and to become citizens. I think this is the perfect thing where we can find some common ground with people who have objected to people coming and other people who have embraced that concept. As many said at the last hearing, and I appreciate, Mr. Mayor, that you allowed testimony at that time, because it was, a lot of people were here. They're here and here to stay, and they want to be part of our community, and we need to give them the resources they need, especially for English language learning, which will allow them then to get the kind of education and job training necessary to really become part of our community. So I've appreciated, and I suggest people watch the videos of those two hearings. They were long, often very emotional presentations, and I'm proud that we're a community that wants to reach out, and they're also a key to our future. Certainly being the oldest state in the Union, and that was reiterated a number of times. And this population is really what we need, and we need to give them the tools that they need in order to become really contributing members to our community. Thank you.
Councilor Lyson. Anyone else before we turn it to the public? Councilor Fangan?
Just a quick note too. The new Mainers that did come in won us a state championship for soccer, which I think we're all pretty proud of them for doing that, and giving us some pretty positive national recognition as well for Coach McGraw and the tremendous amount of work that he did with that. So hats off to them, and pretty proud to have those young athletes as productive members of our community.
Has 2 state championships.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah. Good. Sorry.
Don't short us.
2 out of 3 years.
Don't short us, Councilor.
2 out of 3 years. Yeah.
We earned those. To the public.
Mayor Bouchard and members of the Lewiston City Council. My name is James Mosier. I'm a Maine resident. I'm here tonight to expound upon the cost. I believe it was January 16th that Councilor Cloutier was asked about the private sector cost. And as I sat home and watching the video, I came up with a number of them. So they say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Councilor Lyson, during the January 16th City Hall meeting, you instructed opponents of LD 1492 to get out of the way. Because you believe that true integration is good for Maine. So I'm going to play along. Let us assume then that the progressive endeavor to pepper Maine with immigrants is generally altruistic in nature, and that there is no malice at all. What advice would you give to the family of the young lady who was gang raped by Garang Majuk and his buddies? Should they get out of the way? How about the taxpayers fleeced by Ali Daham and members of the Islamic community who participated in the EBT fraud at the Aram Halal market in Portland? Millions of dollars were stolen. No big deal, right? We should not contest the issue, but just get out of the way. How about the taxpayers who supported Adnan Fazeli before he went to fight for ISIS? Should we not be concerned about financing terrorism? Certainly not. Just get out of the way. Councillor Beam, on January 16th, you gushed over the proposal and proclaimed that the initiative will pay for itself. There will be so much happiness that money will just magically appear like the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. In the real world, sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows bring smiles, but they seldom pay the bills. I disagree with the premise that Maine's economic problems come from being too old or too white. I do not believe that mass immigration is a remedy. In fact, there's plenty of evidence out there to suggest that the reverse is true. At the same meeting, Phil Netto mentioned the Hmong population of Wausau, Wisconsin as a model. A column in The Atlantic in 1994 offers a different perspective on Wausau's diversity experiment. And suffice it to say, the taxpayers of Wisconsin have not been celebrating. The author of the piece notes that the idea of a moratorium on immigration comes up often in discussions in Wausau. Many people told me that they don't raise the idea in public because they believe that religious, media, and government leaders would readily label any kind of criticism of immigration a manifestation of racism. And if you're paying attention to the headlines recently, sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? And Mr. Lyson says the naysayers of immigration are just filled with fear and hate. Mr. Mayor, on January 16th, you gavelled Jason Lavoie down for coming dangerously close to, as you put it, almost having an issue. An issue over what? Telling the truth? I'm not fearful. I'm not a hater. I'm a realist. Assimilation, just, it's not happening. Mr. Netto mentioned Wausau, so permit me to point to scores of Sharia-compliant communities in Minnesota, Michigan, New York, England, France, Germany, and a myriad of others with no-go zones. Talking to some of the local police here, it's kind of getting that way as well. They're called Muslim enclaves. But both the Hamtramck and Dearborn communities in Michigan have undergone a catastrophic demographic shift over the past few decades. In the early 20th century, Hamtramck was a predominantly Polish Catholic community. Now the city council is mostly Muslim. The Adhan, the Muslim call to prayer, starts promptly at 0600. Many residents have complained about the noise, but have been threatened with defamation lawsuits. Interesting to note that South Portland, they're going that way, that you can't even mention the truth without committing a hate crime. Buffalo, New York is another one. It has been so inviting to newcomers from Afghanistan, Yemen, Sudan, Somalia, and Iraq that they've moved in, shut down certain areas of the city, and amplified criminal activity, including drug trafficking. The welfare fraud committed by refugees in Buffalo is very similar to what the FBI found at the Aram Halal Market in Portland. How's that for hospitality? It's not very difficult to connect the dots from Europe to Maine. England has 85 Sharia-compliant courts. In France, there are hundreds of Muslim enclaves that are off-limits to police. This didn't happen overnight, but rather because of years of progressive policies that gradually undermined the freedom and culture of Europe. Many now refer to Europe as Eurabia. The truth is that plenty of damage has already been done here in Maine. Residents of Portland, Lewiston, and Auburn are experiencing rising rent prices, overcrowding schools, and increased property taxes to pay for the transformation of their communities. The cost is considerably higher than the progressives will ever admit, and it's only the tip of the iceberg. They have run Maine's economy into the ground, driven producers out of the state, and now they propose a fix that is downright nuclear. For them, it's not enough to provide for and utilize the immigrants already here. They keep calling for more, more, more. And in fact, that's the very initiative of LD 1492, to attract more. Any one of you think that fostering the growth of terror cells in Maine is a good idea? The FBI reports that it has active ISIS investigations in all 50 states. We know of at least 2 Islamic State fighters who later died on the battlefield in the Middle East after coming to Maine as refugees. Should we feel relieved that they decided to go to Syria and Lebanon rather than steal a box truck and mow down infidels on the street in Portland or Freeport, or how about downtown Lisbon Street here in Lewiston? We're facing an existential threat. The economic impact pales in comparison to the ideological, sociological, cultural shift if the progressive elites get their way. We've seen this movie before, and it doesn't end happily. The welfare state doesn't mix well with open borders. All you got to do is look to guys like Dr. Walter Williams. He'll tell you that. Only a fool would think we will have a different outcome here. I'm a husband, father, and veteran who knows that the productive will end up paying dearly for all of this. So, Mr. Lyson, Councilor Lyson, I'm not going to get out of the way. The issue is so much greater than simply teaching English, as you say. It's or teaching English language to able-bodied newcomers. Sorry, my mouth is getting kind of dry here. If only it were that simple, because then we can just give them all Rosetta Stone software. Thank you for your time. I'm open for any questions. As I said in my email, prove me wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Moser.
Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name's Ann Kemper. I live in Lewiston at 110 Pettingale Street. Is there any more information you need? Okay. I ran the Lewiston Adult Learning Center for about 35 years and am quite familiar with the immigrant population. Does anybody...
Ann, can you just move the... Thank
Does anybody, by the way, see any irony that this bill is LD 1492? What I'd like to say is I'm old. I'm a senior. I'm retired. I think an enormous number of people in Lewiston are seniors and retired. The birth rate is lower in the state than the number of people dying. Maine needs to have people to work. It's incredibly important. I don't know how long ago it was, maybe someone can help me here, when Jim Tierney talked about the incredible need for immigrants or anybody to move into this state and start working. The hospitals can't get people to take care of us. The nursing homes can't get, I mean, it's incredibly important that we have workers at all levels help create a creative economy in this state. The other person that came here to speak a long time ago was Richard Florida, talking about the creative economy and how you need all kinds of people to throw their oar in and help. I think that LD 1492 isn't perfect, but I do know from personal experience that it's been pretty effective in Portland. I think that the private sector is an incredible part of this, but we need to have a start. We need to have an infrastructure, and I see this as a way of having that happen. I just feel like we have to look towards a worker base and attract people. It would have been great if we could have bid for the Amazon contract, right? Maine doesn't stand a chance for that. We don't have enough people here. We need to have more people in the state working. And we are sitting on a huge population that wants to work. And I would suggest to urge you to vote for this and that we work to improve it.
Hi, I'm Faucia Moser. I live in Auburn, 521 Turner Street. I was also part of the group work for LD 1492 for 2 years, every Thursday night for 1.5 years. When the man in front of me spoke, I was kind of emotional. The reason why I got emotional, because I can relate a lot of what you said. I lost my country when I was 5, for many of the reasons that you mentioned. I often tell my kids and my people who listen to me, when I see a man or a woman with army clothes who fought for desert war, they understand my story. I have a coworker at Healthy in Wisconsin. She served Iraq recently and returned from Afghanistan. She didn't go to Somalia, but she went to many countries. She fought terrorism. She and I have a lot in common. See, in the summer, we're both severely depressed. July 4th firecrackers, and instead of joy, they bring us sadness because it's a reminder of what she and I both left behind. We came to America for the same reason you stood here tonight: freedom, work, education. I have 5 kids. My son, Jason, struggled at school too because he was born late. Every year, I don't go to July 4th anymore because I'm scared somebody will run over. I don't go to movie theaters because I watch 9/11. I'm a Muslim too, and we have a lot of fear that cripple us too. I know, so I wasn't gonna cry. My 8th grade daughter recently asked me, "Mommy, what's your American favorite song?" And I was gonna say Neil Diamond, Coming to America, because I like the movie. I like the video of that song when I see an immigrant, a bus immigrants coming from Ellis Island, New York. They weren't black and Muslim. They weren't towel heads for terrorism. They were just immigrants. And I'm neither either. I'm not a terrorist. I'm not a towel head. I'm not a welfare butcher. I came when I was 13 to the United States as an unaccompanied minor. I'm a taxpayer for the last 22 years. As a matter of fact, I work 3 jobs. I leave my home 8, and every night, the earliest I go to my house is 8, if not later than 8. I teach my kids, my 4 daughters and my son, they should be proud they're American and withheld all the freedom and privilege this country affords to them, because it's important to me more than maybe it's important to you. So when my daughter asked me what my favorite song is, I said The Amazing Grace. But see, I'm a Muslim, right? One time when I was in Atlanta, I missed the school bus, and I didn't speak much English, but I tried to walk home. And as I was walking home, I found a little brown building. There was a lot of commotion coming out of there, and it was an all-choir black church, and they were rehearsing, I think. And a heavy-set African-American woman came behind a brown drapery, and she spoke with heavy, heavy, heavy voice. And she spoke, and she sang. And I understood little words, but I couldn't understand a whole lot. But something about when she sang, I had a goosebumps. And I remember crying. I didn't know I was crying. I felt homesick. I missed my mother. I didn't know much about America, but I ran home. 2 years ago, I saw Obama after some black young man shooting. He sang in a church too, and I felt the same feeling. I read the Bible. I read the Quran too. There's some I like both, and there's some a lot I don't like about both. But this country is built on immigrants. And your country preaches about tolerance, about welcoming, about embracing diversity. Not all of us are thieves. Not all of us are welfare moochers. Not all of us are terrorists. America have bad people in it too. Just like I worry my kids getting run by maybe some terrorist, psychotic man who's using my religion. I worry about my kids also getting raped by American-born too, just like every other parent in this country. So it's not fair to say we're all bad, that we're all lazy, that we're all thieves, and we all bring something back to this country. It's not fair. because I work everything in me, trying to prove to you people that I'm good enough, if not better, than American born, okay? And it's so hard to stand here every day and fight for something. And you can't say that we're better than where I come from, the shithole country I come from. They're supposed to be better than that. And you guys treat us the same way they treat us. And it's not fair, okay? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Roger Fuller. I live at 36 Elliott Avenue, and I'm the representative for District 59 in the state legislature. I'm in support of this measure for 3 separate reasons. One, as a former teacher and educator for 42 years, this proposal has something to do with education. I could not stand in front of you and deny that education is the key to the future. Number 2, this measure has something to do with workforce development. In the legislature, we hear over and over again how the workforce in the state of Maine is in decline. In the next 10 years, we'll have a gap of over 160,000 available workforce people. This seeks to bridge that gap by treating new Mainers with equity and fairness. And third, as a Mainer, as a resident of Lewiston, I'm certainly able to make the same observations that you all are. It occurs to me that you have 2 states of life when you're a resident of Maine. You're either growing or you're declining. And we can make a choice to allow our city to grow, or we can make a choice to allow our city to decline. Thank you very much.
My name's Karen Lane. I live at 8 Wilson Street. I'm very disappointed that this discussion has prompted a discussion about the value of immigration. The fact of the matter is, the reality is, the people who are here in the United States legally have every single right to be here, and I'm glad they do. I'm glad they're here. Whether they need help, as some people who were born here do, or not, whether they need help with extra education, as some people who were born here do, or not, I don't think it should be up for debate that that everybody here has a valuable contribution to make. So I'm not afraid of change. I don't think as a community we can afford to be afraid of change. I appreciate it, and I think we can capitalize on it by voting in favor of this resolution. I was at the last meeting, and the mayor mentioned a plan to, I guess, to perform this function himself, to coordinate local businesses in an attempt to help people learn English better, so that they could so they could learn job-specific English. I didn't really understand what the alternative plan was, but it sounded to me like asking for more unpaid assistance from business in order to do a job that could be paid for by this resolution. So I was a little confused about that. I think that this is a good plan, that to have a person who is devoted to helping make some people in our community more productive and ready them for jobs that already exist is a really great thing to do. So I hope that you will vote in favor of it.
Good evening. As I was processing, I'm all about peace, love, not hate. My name is Hawa Abdel. I'm a community relation coordinator for Lewiston Public Schools, and I am a community educator for new Mainers. I work with the ELL population in Lewiston Public Schools. So I wish I, as some people before me here did their research, I wish I did my own research as well, like, and talk about not saying that we all are criminals, terrorists. We're not. Just like I am, other people are. So I'm also part of this committee, LD, support of LD 1492. So as I was hearing earlier, before this immigrants, there were other people that were presenting about construction, other stuff. So as I always look at it, you know, those issues always get passed. But when it comes to immigrants, wanting to change, want to be welcomed in Lewiston, is always get turned down. It's like this hostility towards immigrants. We have to say, we're all immigrant here. Unless you're Native American, then this is your country. Otherwise, we all immigrants. So we need to think about this and think about what it could bring in our city. We want to be welcome to people. When they're coming to the city, I'm going to the GA, or not going to GA, but if I'm getting my car registered, we need to have someone who's there who are welcome. Because I come here, and sometimes I feel like I'm not welcome. So I'm a Lewiston resident, and I'm a Lewiston graduate of high school, and this is my hometown. So we need to make a change. So, like I said, I'm not all about here hate, I'm all about love. So let's just think about this bill and what it can help our people. And not just our people, other Native Mainers as well. So thank you for listening.
This time I'll remember to say my name. Councilors, my name is Jason Lavoie. I live at 353 Lisbon Street. I am speaking in opposition to this resolution because I don't believe that the CATS and Golden Bill is the right direction to go in. In fact, I think programs already exist for all Mainers, regardless of who you are. Anybody can go to the Career Center and get help finding a job. We teach over 34 languages in our schools already. So we are teaching our potential workers English. Anybody can go to a community college and get an education. Anybody can go to adult education. Those programs already exist. And I don't think we need to add more bureaucracy to this. That's why I oppose the Golden Bill. I don't think it's the right direction to go in. I think we just need to build up the programs we already have, and I don't think we need to invest more money. Those programs already exist. That's why I am in opposition to the Golden Bill, and thank you very much for your time.
Oh, I have to come back. Sorry, I'm not crying anymore. I am supporting this bill because I work so damn hard, okay, to be here. I'm very confused about America and what it preaches all the time. You preach acceptance, but you do the opposite. You talk about tolerance, but you do the opposite. Everything America does is contradiction. You said we don't work and we're welfare mutuals, but when we ask for work, you say you're taking our jobs away. Which one is it? You brought us here. I don't remember asking to sign in and coming here. America picked me up from refugee camp and brought me here and said, I'm going to offer you a better life, a freedom. I was told I was oppressed and abused because of my gender, and I was brought here. But America does the same very thing they told me they're going to protect me from. They call me towel head, even though Susan B. Anthony fought for all women's liberation, and I have a right to wear whatever F I want to wear, okay? You cannot bring people from their own country and then I'm confused. If I was a white European, would you do this to me? I feel like it's because of my color of my skin that you all have a hard time swallowing. Not to mention, since 9/11, every towel head in this town is a terrorist in the entire United States. Not to forget that U.S. itself bombs people, but who's talking about that? You can't blame people for their circumstances, okay? We have disabled in this country. Before I came to the United States, Vietnam veterans was spat on by their own American citizens, even though they fought for them. But today I'm blamed for the veterans who are homeless and begging on the streets. How was I to blame that? Every homeless in the United States, in Lewiston, is blamed on me. The poor housing stock, the lead issues, the poorness in this town, all of it, intergenerational bravery that existed way before I came to the United States, is blamed on me. You can't scapegoat everything that's wrong with this country on immigrants and refugees. You gotta find other ways to deal with it. I'm told every day to assimilate. Why should I assimilate when America itself preaches the opposite? To be unique, to be yourself. America, my mosaic. Where's the mistake in that when you ask me to assimilate and to lose everything I am? I am not separating my culture. I'm not segregating. I'm not going to marginalize. I'm going to integrate. I'll take what's good about you, what's good about me, and I'm going to utilize that and become the best form self of me. And that's what America is found upon, okay? Maybe you people forgot the Constitution, but I was told every day to read so I can become a citizen, okay? I'm told every day to memorize everything there is. I remember everything about the Constitution. Ask me one article, okay? I too have chronic PTSD, a childhood abuse, a female genitalia cutting without anesthesia, okay? You cannot ask people tolerance. America is dichotomy of what is exactly is found upon. You contradict yourselves, and that is wrong. You ask people to integrate. You ask people to be law-abiding citizens, but you do the opposite. What is different from you and the so-called terrorists? You terrorize us every day. We are on the red light, go home, towel head, this, that. But then at the same breath, you tell me I came from an oppressed country and somehow you liberated me by bringing me here. But you're doing the same shit to us. We're asking you. We're not asking handout. We're not begging. All we're asking is to offer us little help so we can help the environment, we can help the economic in this country, and we can bring a revenue to this dying city. When I moved to Lewiston, here on Lisbon Street, half of the stores that are owned by Emilio were vacant and boarded at the window. Today is very vibrant and very alive thanks to us, the towel heads, the terrorists, the welfare moochers, and the freeloaders, okay? I tell you, when I read the statistics last time, 75% of people who are on welfare are white-born Americans. In Lewiston, half of the 227 units abated by lead by the city of federal government are American-born white Americans, not immigrants, not new Americans, American-born. The intergenerational poverty in Lewiston is higher in American-born than it is in refugees. Don't hate me if I wash the dishes because you don't want to wash the dishes. Don't hate me if we do the dirty jobs that American-born does not want to do it. Don't hate me if I see opportunity where you don't see one. I chose to see the light of the end of the tunnel when I live in a lead apartment, lead-infested property, when I see our children get affected by lead. We have ADHD, we have autism, that's rising by everybody, not just New Mainers. We have food shortage. We have homeless by Somalis, by Africa. It doesn't matter who you are. But it's a problem that we can solve collectively. And that's what's good about this country. What I like about, recently an elderly Somali man asked me, he said, everywhere I go in Maine, in America, he said, I see an American flag. Private-owned cars, private-owned houses. He said, what is it about America? Do they have to remind themselves that they live in America? And you know what I told him? I told him, is it because Americans are so patriotic, right, that they take upon themselves to be patriotism? Maybe because where we came from, we were coerced, and it was not something that we initiated. And I like about that America. Okay? I like the idea that citizens take upon themselves to build their country, to become somebody. And that's something I model after every day, and I envy you for that, for American bonds, okay? Men who sat here, I salute you for serving this country, okay? Because every time I see men like you said, who serve this country, I appreciate you because I benefit from that freedom, okay? My kids are able to live safe, and I'm able to be secure because of men like you, men in service, all right? I appreciate for everything you did this country. But said, I'm not your issue and I'm not your enemy. I'm the same people you wouldn't oversee properly to protect. The same little girls, the same little kids you protect properly and probably risk your life. I came here because of that. And I'm not your enemy. We have enemy to fight, but I'm not one, okay? The same very enemy you left behind is the same enemy I'm here today. We need to work together. What we have is a collective problem in this country. And politicians and people higher up and people with money, they scapegoat all the issues pitting one board against the other board because you're so busy looking at me. What do I have that you don't have? We live in the same project, in the same damn neighborhood. We collect in the same welfare, in the same building, the same retirement issues. I don't have anything you don't want. Everything I have is the same thing you have. We need to go bigger than that. There is nothing dignifying about talking about welfare. It's a form of begging. There's nothing about good welfare, okay? When I came to America, I was told you need to live in a Hollywood hilltop. You need to climb the corporate ladder, and you need to pursue the American dream, and that was going to Ivy League schools, going Harvard somewhere, that was to have a white picket fence. There's nothing about it that says I need to live in a lead apartment house and collect welfare, nothing. So why would an American-born person talk about welfare? It's a shame that we even talk about welfare. If you need a welfare, fine. But I guarantee you, when I go to the DHS office and I see a white woman, blonde hair, blue eyes, I think the same way she thinks of me. She will probably qualify more shit than me because I think because of her color. And it's a shame that we feel that. Maybe you feel the same way, but I feel that I'm minority 3 times. I'm a woman, I'm black, I'm Muslim, and believe me, there is no time to be worse, to be Muslim than this time in the United States. Thank you.
My name is Jen Carter. I live at 10 Columbia Street. I also work for the Lewiston Public Schools. I'm very nervous to come up here and talk in front of you. I came to the last meeting and I sat there and didn't say anything. And I talked to my daughter, who's in 4th grade, as we're coming over here tonight, about how I get really scared when I stand up in front of people and talk, but I always want to make an example for her. And one of the people at the meeting we were at beforehand runs a storytelling event in the community, and she was saying she needs a student to tell a story, and I said to Olivia, oh, you should do it. She was like, Mom, I could never do that. And I said, let me tell you about how nervous I get, right, like making an example for her. But I don't always do such a good job of making an example for her. I think we're here tonight because we're talking about the story, the narrative, false narrative, versus the truth. I think that there are times when I make assumptions about people. You know, for example, I was at another community meeting maybe it was last week, and Mr. Bouchard was at the meeting, and then I went out to dinner with my friend after the meeting, and he happened to be at the same restaurant. And you came over to the table and you said hey to us. And then my friend said, after we eat our meal, we're going to go over and we're going to say hey to him and his wife. And I said, well, why do you want to say hey to him? He's a Republican mayor who's not going to vote for this bill that we support. And she said, Jen, you need to not make assumptions about people. He's human just like we are. And so there are a lot of times where I make assumptions about people. I think that I'm so radical, my politics are so progressive, but they're not in the end, right? What kind of example am I setting for my daughter if I believe that dominant narrative, that just because somebody is a Republican, that they're not like me? Or just because somebody doesn't agree with all of my ideas, that they're not like me? And so the dominant narrative in Lewiston, I think, around this issue is this dominant narrative of racism, which is a false story, right? Sia just said, like, they tell us, all of us, that we're different from each other because of the way that we look, because my skin is white or your skin is brown, that we have this difference. But actually, in a lot of ways, we're the same, right? Maybe we need different things in order to be successful, but we all want to be successful in the end. And I think at the last meeting, I heard Ms. Cloutier say that she talks to 2 types of people in Lewiston. One group of constituents says, you know, we just want to get jobs and learn how to speak English. And another group of constituents says, I just wish that that other group would get jobs and learn how to speak English. I work at Lewiston High School with groups of kids on leadership projects, and what I tell them is that you can feel passionate about an idea, and you have to speak from your heart, but at the same time, you also have to consider the other perspective. You have to build that in to your presentation of the idea. So if you're a student who wants to end racism at Lewiston High School, which is what my kids get very passionate about, I say, well, you need to think about it from the perspective of the administrators and the teachers, right? How are you going to consider their perspective and their truth and present an idea that will work for everybody? That's leadership. That's what a leader does. And when I hear about this bill, which is presented by a Republican senator in Maine, that's supported, bipartisan, by Republicans and Democrats, that's argued from both sides of the House that, you know, it fits human rights principles, it also fits fiscal responsibility and workforce development, it's obvious to me that this has been considered from every possible side. There is no argument that I can think of against this other than the false narrative of racism. So to me, the decision that you have to make tonight is, are you going to follow that narrative? Are you going to be like me in that restaurant, making an assumption and following that same way of doing things just because somebody else told you that it was true, a party, a person, a group of constituents? Or are you going to be a leader and consider everything like my friend and say, everybody's a human being and everybody deserves to get what they need in the city of Lewiston? We're going to be different, right? And imagine that. That's what I want to imagine for my daughter, Olivia. Because now we live in Lewiston. Is Lewiston a city where a Republican mayor can say no to that narrative and can be so powerful as to convince that group of constituents that also believe in that narrative is false, that we could actually sit down at a table and break bread together and be a community? Like, I believe you can do that. And I'm sorry that I made an assumption about you, because I think that my friend is right. I think that you're going to make the right decision. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Jen. Anyone else?
My name is Kaiwa. I am a community member. I'm also being resident for the last 10 years. This is my first meeting at the city of Lewiston. I'm kind of nervous, but I also want to piggyback some of the discussion that happened prior to me. When I think about community, I often think about a colorful. Just like flowers, I don't picture a narrative of one community belongs here longer than the other ones, or you are not supposed to be here, or why you're here, or what's the difficulty. I often believe as the community progress, there is always a newcomer. I mean, if there were no immigrant outside America, it would be another white somebody from Texas that would transition Maine. Would that be otherwise different than us? Every time I heard a negative feedback about Mainer or someone that from long-time American, it nerves me. It makes me uncomfortable. It dehumanized the majority of immigrants like me who are positive, who would die on American flag, who would share the common value we all share, who would believe the idea of pursuit of happiness and teaching your kids the common ground that any other kids deserve a chance to learn, to prosper, to grow up and seek freedoms. As I hear this gentleman who said, I'm a veteran. My dad was a general back home, and every time I see a military guy, it makes me proud. When I look at their uniforms, it reminds me when I was young, the idea my father used to tell me, stood up for your rights, preach the rights of others, don't take for granted the things you have. I work hard, each and everything I have, and as a mother of 3 young Mainer, I won't take it when someone is said, you don't belong here. I really don't take that easily, and I do believe it's not the right thing to say, and I do believe that's not what can take Maine forward. It shouldn't be a discussion who's supposed to be here and who is not supposed to be here. It would be more stronger if we rather promote what we have already. We are a positive community by numbers, and statistics are showing the positive side, rather than to pick 2 individuals. I mean, he pointed out 2 individuals. What about the 5,000 others who work every single day and believe that they can be anybody within Lewiston, Maine? I hope that one day that we don't have this type of discussions. I hope that one day I don't have to feel that way. This is the first time I come, and now tonight my son is with me, and as I hear all the negative feedback that gentleman paid, it didn't piss me off in some cases because I don't feel that way when I'm in schools. I don't feel that way when I react to others. Because of that, I do believe it is okay to hear those type of things from others. It allows me to understand their perspective as well. But to conclude this, I hope that people understand the common value we share is the same as the one that they've been taught their mothers and their grandmothers. And I hope people that recognize the American constitutions that are in place. The American Constitution that protects people like me, that cannot be replaced, despite what you believe. I hope that people change their mind, and I thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. Any other public comment? With that, back to the council. Councilors have any comments? Council Marco?
I take the objection to a reference that any of us who might vote no is a narrative of racism. Now, there are many components of this legislation, and much of it is financial and comparative to what can be done here locally from the private sector or even from the public sector. One example is I got the adult education booklet recently, much thinner than it used to be. The offerings seem to be much more one-day offerings than maybe a 10-week course in a language. I went particularly to the language section, and the only course being offered was Arabic. Went back to a previous edition that I had, the only course offering was Latin. I don't understand why the adult education department couldn't put out more English courses as a second language or whatever the reference might be. Also, when I look at the state bill and how it's funded, it looks very much like revenue sharing. We get something up front, but who's to say that the state legislature in the future takes the money away and the position becomes on the backs of the Lewiston taxpayer? So for that reason, I'm out.
So come this way, Councilor Beam, do you have anything? Yeah. Okay, Councilor Cloutier.
One clarification and just one question for Councilor Marcotte. Did you reach out to Bill Grant from Adult Ed?
Who?
Bill Grant, who's the Executive Director of Adult Ed, to ask those questions?
No, I haven't.
Okay, thanks. And just a clarification of something that was said by someone. We don't teach 34 languages in our public school system. We offer support for 34 languages and possibly more than that through a language line in our school system. So that's what we use for translation. We don't even have one-on-one translation for people who don't speak the language in our school department. So imagine going through the education system, not being able to speak the language, and having to use a language line to interpret for you.
Just one clarification as well. Representative Golden is not a part of this bill. We heard during the first workshop that he had submitted a similar bill, but this is the CATS bill. Kate's?
Kate's.
Guy from Augusta bill that we're talking about here.
I just wanted to, it got reported out of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee with a 10-3 ought to pass. So there was strong bipartisan support of ought to pass. Like I said, it's going to be competitive. I think we need to let people know about our support. You know, the legislation, and I think we need I think we need the private sector to be involved in that process as well. So I welcome people who are aligned with this initiative, or maybe even have a different way of getting there. I think this is a start, as I mentioned, and I think that there's no bill that's perfect that's ever been put forward. They say you never want to watch legislation being made or sausage being made, so that's the comparison. So in any case, I do think that it's not the be-all, end-all, but I think it's a start in the right direction to help this community move forward and give opportunity to people who who are legal residents of this country and deserve every opportunity that we can give them. Thank you.
So I'll just kind of wrap it up a little bit. Thank you, Jen, for your words, your story, and for coming to see me that night. You and Howa were great. I'm putting Howa on the spot now, but I will, echo Councilor Marcotte's concern that, the false narrative really is just because I may not be for LD 1492 has absolutely nothing to do with me not being for workforce initiatives for any population that needs additional services, whether that be our generational poverty, as the young lady pointed out. We do have a large population of native-born on general assistance and on other forms of assistance and welfare. They have barriers into the workforce as well, and our New Mainer population has a lot of barriers also. And my commitment is going to be to help all of those groups with workforce initiatives, notwithstanding 1492. So, and I also have some fiscal concerns with the bill. Doesn't mean I'm racist, doesn't mean racism has anything to do with it. It's a commitment to everybody and just a different approach for getting the same thing done. So with that, call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Absolutely.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-1.
Agenda item number 13.
Item number 13, authorization to accept transfer of forfeiture funds. Requested action that pursuant to Title 15, Maine Revised Statutes annotated, Section 5824.3 and Section 5822.4a, the City Council hereby acknowledges and approves of the transfer of $507 or any portion thereof in the case of the State of Maine versus John Crone, CR 173287 court records, being funds forfeited pursuant to the court process. It is further acknowledged that these funds shall be credited to the City of Lewiston Drug Enforcement Program account.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Ray, seconded by Councilor LaJoy. Lose my mind. Questions to the public? Back to the council. Call the roll.
Council from Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Agenda item number 14.
Item number 14, order authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement with Storage Realty Corporation regarding the cost of addressing erosion issues affecting 805 Lisbon Street. Requested action to approve the order authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement with Storage Realty Corp. Regarding the cost of addressing erosion issues affecting 805 Lisbon Street.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Lyson, seconded by Councilor Pettingill. Can we just get some background?
Sure, just very briefly, I think everyone's aware that in December, the City Council authorized an order under the dangerous buildings statutes that allowed the city to make some emergency repairs due to erosion occurring that threatened the properties at 795 and 805 Lisbon Street. Under that statute, the initial obligation is upon the property owners to try to undertake and repair the situation. They did not do so, so the city has stepped in and we're in the process now of dealing with that erosion problem. Subsequently, we've had some discussions with SRC, the owners of one of the pieces of property, and they have agreed to participate in the cost of the work that we're doing out there to the amount of $7,500. We anticipate the entire project is probably going to cost somewhere in the $50,000 to $70,000 range. This would represent somewhat over 10, maybe 15, 20% of the total cost. I think it's a reasonable agreement. Recognizes that they have some skin in the game in terms of potential future damage to the property, plus they did contribute somewhat to the stormwater flow in the area that had some effect on the problem. We also have another property owner involved that is still out there, and we have not reached any agreement with that property owner as of yet, but we would recommend this as a way to settle at least one situation out there and move forward with the rest of the work and move on to the other property owner.
Any questions from the council? Public? Back to the council.
I'm not comfortable for voting with this because not all of the parties have signed on to an agreement. And in the end, one party could end up being responsible, another party might not. And we have not established who is responsible for the damage in its entirety. I understand that there may be some stormwater flow, as the administrator just said, but stormwater flow defaults back onto the city for the most part. There was a stormwater pipe that ran under that property and was put in some 47 years ago. And both property owners, from my understanding, have been around for that length of time or longer on those couple of parcels impacted. So I'm not comfortable voting in the affirmative on this agreement at this time.
Additional comments, questions? Call the roll.
Counsel from Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
No.
Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6 to 1.
Do an update from the Lewiston School Committee representative.
Thank you. A few things to update everyone on. So last Monday, January 19th, the school committee met with our legislative delegation, Senator Nate Libby, Representative Heidi Brooks, and Representative Roger Fuller. We discussed a number of legislative bills that are currently going through committees, and the one that stood out the most is LD 1666, which is a delay to proficiency-based learning implementation. The committee discussed and will be hopefully testifying both through the superintendent and our legislative liaison against this delay. We want to add certainty to the graduation timeline for our students, and we will hope to be successful in that. I handed out to all counselors and city staff the budget timeline for the school committee. It's a little bit sooner than the city municipal budget process begins, so looking forward to having you join us for that. And then also the Lewiston Visual and Performing Arts Center meeting is currently scheduled for tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. at the multipurpose room at Lewiston High School. Feels like there's a chance of snow, and so it will be rescheduled to February 13th, same time, same place. They'll make the call based on what the school department decides. They may have decided by now.
It's Tuesday the 13th.
Yes.
And we have a council meeting that night too, right?
We have a workshop.
Councilor Pettengill, here you have an announcement.
I do. So there's still time to sign up for the Citizens Police Academy. Lewiston Police Department's Citizens Police Academy provides an inside look over the day-to-day operations of the department. This is a unique opportunity to engage with the department, to be informed on the services they provide, to discuss current issues taking place both within Lewiston, Maine, and out, and to ask questions related to law enforcement. This is a 10-week program at the department. We'll meet every Tuesday starting on February 13th and will end on April 17th. Classes start at 6 p.m. and we'll finish at 8 p.m. Let them know to contact Officer.
Yeah, and Officer Philippon's address will be appearing at the bottom of your screen if you're watching at home today.
Convenient.
Good. Thank you. Any other reports, updates, mentions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?